What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 31. Yes, 31 of me documenting my journey as a startup founder, as a bootstrapped startup founder, no funding, and a startup founder that's building my own AI native search platform. What does that mean? It basically means I'm building a baby Google, a baby Perplexity by myself. I've spent several years working at Google and other search companies and other tech companies. And a couple of years back, I quit Google to start on my own venture, figure out what exactly I think is missing from the variety of sort of uh, technology solutions we have when it comes to just search. And I was really frustrated. One reason I was frustrated was the major players are all very large tech companies uh, from a very small part of the world. And they are largely driven by revenue, profit, and growth. And which is fine. That's what a company is. It's all about growth. Paul Graham quote, startups are growth, or something along those lines, which I totally disagree. 100% disagree. Um, um, it's about impact, and it's about improving human user lives, and growth will come as a side effect, is my fundamental belief. That's why I'd never apply to Y Combinator, and they should never accept me ever. Anyways, um, today I'm going to talk about something that I've been thinking about for a while, which is user experience. Um, One of the first things I've realized since I've been thinking about this almost for a year and a half, what is it I want to build? How is it going to be different? And am I building something different for just for the sake of being different? And I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to make sure I don't want to build something just to be different. I want to be different, that I want to build something that represents my values and represent what I think the world needs in the next 1 or 2 decades. And a lot of it I've learned from my son, who's a teenager, and I've seen him um, engage with technology and his friends. And there's so much I've learned. And I can summarize my values with four pillars that I've talked about in previous videos. Anything I build, as long as it comes from a technology standpoint, it has to be based on these pillars. One is trust. You have to do the hard work so that you earn trust. You have to earn trust. That's one of the pillars. And so you have to make decisions that way. And all the other pillars feed into this, by the way. But it's good to call them out because they are separate in their own right. Transparent, what the company you're building and the product you're building. There has to be transparency in terms of what the decision making and what you're doing with the data that you're collecting. If you're saving data about a user, you have to be transparent about it, and you have to show it right there and right then when you decide to do it. In my experience, if you search with a query or a prompt, if there is a memory that what I'm building recognizes needs to be stored, it will flash that, oh, we've extracted this and we're going to save this as a memory, is what I wanted. And you can edit and delete or say no, or you can say no permanently. Um, I haven't thought about the permanent solution, but you should be able to, is my thinking. By the way, sorry about all the noise. It's just, I live in a place that's such a mess. It's so loud and so jarring, just all the sounds but I have no choice. I've talked about it in a previous video. But anyway, let's continue. So transparency. Number three or the third pillar is control. At any given point in time, users should be in full control. For example, the user should be able to say, I want to delete everything. And if you delete, I've said this before, not a Reddit delete where we just scrub all the user data and anonymize it. That's not what I want. Like, you see a lot of Reddit posts like user deleted, but what if I have something private in my data, in my post, that you're showing it to the world? So a clean delete. Other thing like don't save my memories, or don't do this. Like the critical user touching data points and user touching actions, user should have control. We, in the sake of simplicity, sometimes don't surface anything to keep the UX simple, but at a big cost. So control is the third pillar, and the fourth pillar is ethics, which is really stands for ethical decision making. You have to kind of make sure that if you're say you're introducing gamification, like you're gonna have points, and um, you're gonna engage reward users to give points if they engage with your system. If they search more, they get more points. Okay, all that. Okay, fine, that's fine. Nothing wrong with it. It's cool, but you have to do it with the strong ethical foundation. If you're kind of crossing this sort of very narrow line, where it starts to become shady, and you're just turning now into deceptive engineering just to get the user come back, just to get the user to click something, just the user can surface you surface something just so that you can get user attention. That's no good, right? These are very strong sort of values that I think I'd want in anything I build. And search is such an important use case, because it informs us for so many things: where to go, travel, where can I find this, what's a recipe for this, etc. So anyway, that's the foundation. Now, one thing I want to talk about, which often comes in my mind, and I'm sure people are thinking about this, is how does that differ with chat? Like, how is search different than chat, and are they converging? And this is a very interesting discussion, and this is what I want to talk about in today's video. I do think they're converging. That's the short answer. But at the same time, I don't think they'll ever converge completely. I don't think it makes sense, at least with a user-centric design, which is what I've described. It doesn't make sense, largely because this is how I differentiate chat versus search. Chat is oftentimes, I think, works best if it's a long-running conversation, just like we have human-to-human conversation. You sit in a coffee shop with a friend or a few friends, and you engage, and you go back and forth, and you talk, and you say something, and you get a response, and then you say something back, and you get a response, etc. And it's all very important, very useful, very satisfying, and very human. And you learn something, you get answers for a lot of things, you tweak um, the discussion so that, or not really tweak, but you provide more clarification, or just have the sort of discussion go in a certain way based on sort of your input, and so that you can get the answers or response or the clarification that you want. So it's a thread, is how I see it. And there are lots of use cases for it, many use cases. Like travel, I think, is a good use case for a chat app, because it's very hard for me to come up with a very sophisticated query or prompt with everything that I have in mind, in terms of where to travel, with whom to travel, what time to travel, what's my budget, where I've traveled in the past, this time what I feel like, what's the season, what else I want to do. It's very hard, right? And so chat is such a perfect experience for it, where I can start with, hey, where should I go this Christmas, or this fall, or this spring, or this summer, and then obviously, the chat app can use your memories and personalize, and maybe it already knows you've been here before, etc. But still, then you engage. No, not this. I feel like I want to go somewhere warm. I feel like going to the beach. Maybe I've never been to France, right? And so that's a very natural chat conversation. And because of that sort of back and forth, the UX has to be very clean and designed for scrolling or swiping, so that you can go back and forth, go up and down, maybe, to see what was discussed. You can't have very media heavy responses. If every response is media heavy and text heavy, it becomes very cumbersome to kind of go through and follow the conversation. That's how what I think about chat UX. And ChatGPT is the perfect example for it, and why so many people love ChatGPT. It just personifies, or it defines sort of that chat experience, how I described it, perfectly. um, and people have all these conversations. There's so many conversations people have just on mental health, and so many conversations people have just because they want to take things out and they don't have anyone to listen to. Our society is getting very, very isolated, and ChatGPT honestly is benefiting for it. I don't know for better or worse, but it's definitely benefiting. So that's chat. But search is, in my opinion, the way I think about search is I I want a much more richer, media heavy response to possibly a much more smaller inquiry of mine. Now I'll still have a discussion. Perplexity is a great example for this. It blends search and chat almost perfectly. I love it. I love Perplexity. Um, they're becoming another I mean, they're a multi-billion dollar company, and I think they may be on track to become the next trillion-dollar company. So um, I like Perplexity, but I'm not satisfied because they're on the path of growth and just becoming another trillion-dollar company. And so we'll have more trillion-dollar companies as our only alternatives for good search experience. But I do think Perplexity does a decent job. It blends in a fairly composed but richer search sort of response. But yet you can have a conversation back and forth. Now, where I differ from Perplexity is that I feel the search response should be even more media heavy. Now, that's how, just purely because how I think of search is, I expect few sort of back and forth discussions, but I don't expect very many. That's the differentiation. So search, in my mind, to summarize, shorter discussions, oftentimes just one or two shot, like I ask something, I get something, and then just I clarify, and that's about it. And I be on my way. And search also, I think of search as discovery. So even though when I'm not um, using my devices, maybe I'm sleeping, search should know enough about me and prepare everything for me just based on what I've searched for my profile, in a privacy conscious way, um, such that um, it can send me things, or it can prepare things for me for next time around. I expect that from a search app. It's like kind of what Google now and some other products were for a while. Um, it represents the chat application understanding me and then preparing something for me, and such, not for designed for just pure engagement, but to save me time, make me more productive, make me more informed decisions. So maybe I can make more money as a professional if I know a fashion trend and I'm a fashion designer, or I learned something about an event that came up that I missed, or I got a nice summary of something happened in that's interesting to me. That informs me, and maybe I may change my today's plan. I may change what I was writing or planning today, or I may change what I may do next month, like my travel plan, because of that. And because it's prepared as a brief ahead of time, I don't have the responsibility to kind of build a habit to always go every morning or every afternoon or every evening, whatever. So I think that's also responsibility of search. But chat apps can do it. So ChatGPT has Pulse, which is something like that. Um, but it's kind of odd for a chat application to do that, because I may often share some very private things to a chat app. Like I said, a lot of people are using chat apps for mental health purposes. Like I may say something like, I feel like my life is a complete mess. I don't have anyone in my life. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I should be doing. I'm so unsatisfied. I just feel my life is a failure. I don't know what to do. Should I go to Mexico and just like lay low? Right? These are the kind of things I may have with a chat app, but then don't use all that to produce my briefs and personalize. I mean, maybe some things are okay to personalize, but don't, it's a very intimate conversation. So that's where I draw the line. But search, you don't expect to have that intimate of a conversation. It's purely knowledge and information discovery and just um, browsing content that is relevant to whatever question you have. So, oh, excuse me. So that's why I think there is room for both search and chat apps, and that's why I think they shouldn't be one and the same. If you look at ChatGPT today, and if you look at Google today, they clearly are trying to do everything, and for good reasons. There's a lot of money, a lot of engagement at stake. You can do any kind of question that you can ask my platform or Perplexity, you can ask ChatGPT or Grok. And they have a search mode, they do web queries, and they have search in a web tool, in a function tool, sorry, way, so that it can sort of keep thinking, and during thinking, it can search and then produce something, and then again think and search more and then produce, etc. And so it does some very smart things so that you're not just searching and producing a response. It searches and then thinks and changes the query and searches again and thinks again and looks at what we've collected, and then that's not sufficient and tries again. And I call it a loop. Industry, there's research. There's lots of research, and one of the main research uh, around this subject is called CRAG, C-R-A-G, CRAG loops, and I've built that in my platform as well. But it does all these very fancy things. So it's really, well, it's great. You get a good response, very satisfying response. But what you don't get is the user experience, just the UX. It's not media heavy. It doesn't show me enough images. Perplexity shows images, but it's very basic. It doesn't show enough videos, news. Like, it's not very Google-like. Like, that's what people still use Google. That's, if a lot of people ask me, why are people still using Google if ChatGPT is so great? Well, if you search for something, you instantly can click on news and see the news in seconds. You get it, milliseconds sometimes. You can see all the images. You can see all the forum matches, maps. You can just find local info, all of that in one place very quickly. That's a search experience. Like, ChatGPT doesn't give that, and that's why people use both. And I feel Google is the perfect example. I don't think Google should converge too much. And they've done some interesting things. I was at Google, by the way, when Google introduced AI mode, and I was dog fooding AI mode before Google had AI mode. Before that, when I joined Google, Google only had um, web results like links, but also it had what's called web answers, which is like Q&A that you see in a snippet, and then like the knowledge card that shows stuff about info from about an entity from Wikipedia and elsewhere, and then it showed sort of a quick answer at the top if it knew, in the form of different cards like weather, or you just ask what's the capital of France. It just showed Paris, and that's about it, I guess, and then some results. Um, and then Google introduced AI. So Google's doing very interesting things, and I overall I like the direction that Google is taking, which is being a little more conservative and not making Google a chat app. I think that's a good thing, but I also know there are a lot of misses. Like, they're very slow. I was at Google. Another thing, I was at Google Search. I was in the search role, in a leadership role. I was at Google Search when ChatGPT came out, and I know the reactions. So they have some misses as well. So I don't know. And also they're very ad dependent, ad revenue dependent. So I have some concerns. So I absolutely think I'm on the right path to build something like this as a small company and provide a small company alternative, but not compromise on the pillars I said, and not compromise on the quality of the product. And as you'll have a chance to see once I launch, April is the time frame. So next month is when I think of I call it a pre-alpha launch, MVP launch, also, whatever. I don't really care for labels. But the idea is that that launch is going to be a launch for mostly feedback. And then that will turn into an alpha, and then it will turn into beta, and then maybe launch. And I want to build a community so that people can help me out and I can help them in return. Maybe I give them free credits or whatever, so that, they're rewarded for their time. So I want to build a community. Maybe Discord is where I'm thinking. So I put Discord links, etc., in the description. Right now, no one watches this video. Like when I go to YouTube Studio, it's like 0 views. So that's fine. I also document this just for my own future self. Anyways, so that's search UX versus chat UX, and search apps versus chat apps, and why we need both. They can converge, but they cannot completely converge. And that's what my prediction is. Chat GPT will continue to support more and more search related use cases, traditional search related use cases, and start to get more and more media heavy. That's my prediction. I'm sure ChatGPT is already thinking about maps and local, which is the first thing you run into when you start competing with Google. Apple knows this. You start to think, and then at some point your engineer will come and they'll tell you, but Google has local and maps. And then, well, if you're a senior leader, you're like, oh, what can we do about it? And the engineer is like, they've been building it for the last 20 years. It's a long-term investment. It's so important for Google, the maps business, the maps org. Funny enough, one of the first interviews I had almost a decade back, 1.5 decades back, was in the maps org in Mountain View. Very, very interesting. So that's another thing. That's like the ace up Google's sleeve. Very hard to compete with Google because of local and maps. But yeah, that's chat and that's search. And I want to talk about finally what I've been showing you on the screen. And so one of the things that comes to mind is, okay, now that we talked about chat apps and search apps, and there's a difference, what do we want in a good search UX? I've talked about media heavy, right? What do I mean by that? So here's an example. This is just by the ongoing research on my side, but here the question is, for a simple query like, what's the capital of France, right? So you can ask this question to ChatGPT, you'll get a good answer, maybe a small paragraph or 2 lines. You can also ask this question to Google, and you'll get a good response, like, oh, probably say Paris, and you'll get some web search results and a card, what we call a knowledge panel at Google. It comes from the knowledge graph. I was, by the way, part of the knowledge graph team. Actually, we're on the intersection of knowledge graph and search, because we build AI model or machine learning models for trust for rest of Google search, like as in a lot of Google search teams used our models. Anyways, so that's the left answer, right? Just very quickly, don't worry, read too much about the commentary, your son, etc. Stop reading. That's kind of, we'll talk about it some other time, because I've been using my son to dog food. He's my very first customer, which is awesome. I'm proud and I'm thankful for him to kind of help me out. But this is kind of what I meant, right? This is the ChatGPT answer on the left. And this is what I would expect on the right, what a search experience would be like. It's heavy, it's media rich. It often shows more than I need. So like, again, you go to Google, it'll show you a lot more than you need, but it kind of satisfies and gratifies you. And oftentimes you may click on some other things because it may be interesting to you. I feel that's important, that discovery part, versus having a very focused response, which is what ChatGPT would do, or LLM chat apps does. So here I have something where instead what I'd expect from a search UX would be some quick answer is you good, so don't make the user wait. And so here's the quick answer: Paris is the capital of France. Quickly, 750 milliseconds in my case, which by the way is too much at Google. That for Google would have been, if I was working for Google, that should have been under 100 milliseconds. But anyways, and then I'd expect an entity card. Like it's the equivalent of a knowledge panel in Google. But I'd expect that. That I just asked what's the capital is. Thanks for showing me this card, right? Oh, its population is this. Okay. I don't know whether it's real, 2.1 million. That probably sounds. Actually, it may be just right. Population of Paris, 2 million. Anyways, some population, it shows me some other things, maybe a photo. Very cool. I liked it. And not only asked what's the capital of France, but also show a picture of what Paris looks like, probably the Eiffel Tower. That's pretty good. And I should be able to click on the picture and engage more. It's a very engaging experience at the end of the day. That's another way to distinguish chat versus search. It's click and browse heavy engagement versus scrolling engagement where it's a long discussion. The discussion in chat should be very fluid and lightweight so that I can scroll quickly and go back and forth. It's like messaging back and forth. It actually is exactly like Apple Messages. You message someone back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's similar in some ways how ChatGPT should be optimized and is optimized for. But this is what I'd expect in a search UX. And that's why I'm building a search platform, an AI native search platform. I'm not building a chat app. And this is why, this is how it describes. Then I'd love to see some media, right? Some images, some videos. My son, a lot of Gen Z folks are into videos, maybe even some TikTok about Paris that people are talking about lately. Maybe something's going on. That's very engaging. And I asked my son, will he click on it if he saw some videos? And he's like, yeah, if they're interesting, I immediately click on it. Even though I asked a couple of friends, I'd like to learn more what's going on today. And then some related info, right? That's amazing. Obviously, this is not the final UX. I've so many other things that I've been thinking about, but this for this video is a perfect representation. And then you can obviously imagine if it's this is a very simple query. That's why it's called, what do we call it? Swift. It's a Swift query, like easy query. You can imagine like for a complicated query, like what is the stat of this football player last 20 games? While playing against this team in this area or so in this tournament, something like that. That's a very complicated query. You have to go find a lot of data, put things together, what the experience should be like for that, right? And it's not too different, by the way. Maybe I'll talk about it in a future video, but some of these aspects stay, the richness and the engaging experience part. But the emphasis then becomes less on the quick answer and the sort of the final response. And what we're showing along the way while that model is thinking is what I'd expect is a good response and a good experience. And then I have something at the bottom. Oops, sorry. Let me kind of do this here. And so here I'm just showing the performance. Sorry, I thought this was something else. But this is just like how do you blend in or how do you show the response streaming. But for more complicated query, I may do a different video in the future. But I think I talked about what I really wanted to talk about, which is search versus chat UX, search versus chat apps. Why they need to converge, they will converge, and they'll continue to converge in the foreseeable future. But why we need both, and why I'm not building a chat app and I'm building a search app. And in fact, if you're someone who's building a chat app, I mean, think about how you're going to differentiate, like what real problem you're solving, because ChatGPT, all these apps are so good. Like you can challenge me and ask me why I am building a search app. What's the real problem? And I'll say two things. One is to provide a small company alternative if things go south with big companies. I don't want a feature for my kid where he has to rely on these very large tech companies that God knows what they do with his data. And God knows what decision they make in the interest of revenue and growth. And my son, is dependent so much on it that there is no other viable alternative. And we just keep feeding the giant megacorps and we're stuck. So that's one reason. And the second reason is there's so many gaps. Just this experience, what I'm showing here, where is a search app today in the world that's an AI native search app that does this? Like Perplexity doesn't do this. I don't see TikTok videos when I search for what is the capital of France. I don't see a nice, colorful, really nicely blended, useful, rich search experience. I don't see that. I don't see any app that does it. So that's my second reason. And the third reason is more personal. Is I've always wanted to build this, but I wanted to wait for the right time, and I also wanted to make sure it solves a real problem, which are the two things I talked about earlier, because it's a huge investment. It's not a smart thing to quit my Google job right when the stock was going like this. and quit and do this and put your family at risk, your financial situation at risk. But I think with AI coding and all these coding LLMs, especially Claude and Codex. It's funny, I use Codex, which is ChatGPT's coding model. Although I've switched from Codex now to ChatGPT 4.6, where it has picked up on Codex, and now it's a general purpose model that can code. And I mean, older models could always code, but now it has all it codes as well as Codex. So at one point they were bifurcating ChatGPT model, general purpose, and then code focus model. And now there is 4.6 that I'm using that can do both. And I feel that now it's merging. Now they may not have two models, because anytime you have more than one model that are similar, it's so expensive to maintain, to release, because every model you have to release, you have to test internally. You have to have all these evals. You need to have human evals where humans evaluate. It's lengthy, complicated, slow. So I can totally imagine why ChatGPT just wants one model. That's what Claude does, right? Claude just has one model, and it helps them move faster. So I suspect they'll do that, and they'll kill the Codex branch of models. But I'm using both of those models, and um, I think the time's right. And so far, I've been able to get through thanks to these AI coding LLMs. Of course, I have to jump in, and of course, they make a lot of mistakes, and they forget things, and they're not perfect today for large scale. Like a platform like what I'm building to vibe code, no, you can't do that, unfortunately. But I'm so grateful for all the help I've gotten with those tools. I don't use Gemini because it still gives up too quickly. It's amazing. It does so good in one shot, two shot prompts, and just completely fails when there's a large code base and something complicated. Anyways, that's kind of it for today. I'll see you in the next one. I enjoy doing this, so I'll continue doing this. And I don't know what the topics for the next video is gonna be, but watch out for it on my channel. See you later.